Do you have to enjoy sports to enjoy sports video games? That's the question we're giving ourselves the task of answering on this week's Gaming the Podcast. Have a listen to our thoughts on the subject and then let us know what you think. We are at Indie by Design on Twitter and all other social media platforms. That's at Indie by Design. So drop us a follow and get involved in the conversation there. Also, if you happen to enjoy the art, culture and history of video games, then you should visit our website, indiebydesign.net. There you can check out the books that we've written and designed on those very subjects. That's enough rambling from me though, so let's get on with this week's show and answer the question, do you have to enjoy sports to enjoy sports video games?
As somebody that's not particularly into a lot of real world sports, there's not a lot of sports that I watch or spectate in real life, but there's still several sports games and types of sports games that I play. I'm interested to know how my experience tallies with yours as somebody that is interested in watching a lot of real world sports. It's something that you're very interested in, very passionate about. And I'm interested to know, like, how does that translate into our video game experiences of sports, and whether, well, frankly, like, do you have to like sports to like sports games, and what are you getting out of each type of sports game? So, do you think, on that basic level, do you think like you get more out of sports games, or do you think you have to like sports in order to like sports games?
Well, I don't think you have to like sports in order to like sports games. No, and I don't, and I know that from experience by knowing people, including yourself. But there are other people that I know as well who play sports games but don't especially enjoy sports and would never, make time to watch football or F1 or golf or whatever it is. They just wouldn't watch it, but they still enjoy sports games. So no, from a direct experience level, I would say no, you don't have to like sports in order to like sports games. But I mean, I do really like sports, and like a lot of different sports, like, football and NFL, NBA, tennis, racing, like UFC, whatever. And I engage with most sports that I watch, I engage with in video game form as well. I mean, not all of them. Don't really play cricket games that much, even though I do watch cricket. And that's an interesting thing, like, on that, because there's sports of the few sports that I do watch, things like snooker, tennis, golf, some NFL. Like, there's several of those I don't play the video game equivalents of. Snooker in particular, I don't really have much interest in playing the video game equivalent of, which is odd to me, because I can well imagine that getting a snooker video game right is, by comparison, relatively easy in terms of replicating the physics and it's a very self-contained thing that you're representing. There's not as many variables as there is on a football field. That's much easier than replicating realistic physics for 22 players.
Human behavior. Yeah, absolutely. I'm just not interested in like engaging with a video game of snooker, whereas I'll watch it. And I wonder, like, I think maybe this comes back to probably the way that I engage, or the way that I watch those sports in the first place, and the reason that I'm playing video game sports games, because I don't play any. I don't think I can think of a single video game sports game that I play single player. So I will play the multiplayer, so it's kind of it's a social thing. It's a way of interacting with other people, and we might sit down and play something like Everybody's Golf, which. Is loosely a golf game, at least. I suppose it's important here to have that definition as well, because there are various types of sports game. There's like the sports sim, like iRacing, Assetto Corsa, right on the racing side. And then you've got more arcadey games like Everybody's Golf or FIFA Street, NBA Jam, that sort of stuff, which Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, which are trying to mimic the core fundamentals of the sport, like the core rules maybe, or the core actions that you're going through, but not in a realistic way. And then I suppose there's a third kind of sports game as well, which is kind of like I don't really know what to call it. I mean, they would try to refer to themselves as simulations, but they're not really. And I'm thinking like Madden, FIFA, NBA, 2K, the PGA Tour games, UFC games. They would like to call themselves simulators, but I don't think they are. Like,
when you play FIFA, you're not simulating the act of playing football. You're simulating the act of what it would be like if you could watch the players on TV but control them. You're not actually going through the motions. You're not kicking the ball. You're not taking the penalty. You're not getting fouled like you are in, say, a racing game where you are performing the exact same actions as the race driver. Okay, your senses are different because you can't feel the shake of the car and whatever. You can't feel the weight changing and the centrifugal forces, but you are going through the exact same motions as Lewis Hamilton is going through in that F1 car. But in FIFA, you're not going through the same actions as Messi or Salah or whoever is going through in... So I think there's three kinds of sports games, I suppose. There's a simulator, there's like the arcadey game, and then there's the game which is trying to simulate TV spectator version.
It's trying to simulate that time when you sit on your sofa and you shout at the players, pass, you muppet, and then they actually do pass because you're playing a game and you get to press the button.
Yeah.
And then you have to blame something else because you find out that passing at that moment probably wasn't the best idea. But, so then you can blame the ball physics or something.
Yeah. And I mean, as someone who watches a lot of sports, I play all of those kinds of games. I play the simulator, I play the kind of realistic TV audience style FIFA, Madden, and more arcadey games.
See, I think I probably skip the simulator type, which probably isn't a big surprise, I guess, but I don't engage. So the arcadey kind of abstraction of the sports game is what I'm far more likely to engage with. And I think that's because the reasons that I'm playing it isn't necessarily, or not really at all, to try and replicate the experience of either watching that sport, which I very possibly don't do anyway in real life, or in trying to be a part of that sport, in trying to recreate what it feels like, in terms of a racing game. Because a racing game, I'd be, I'm much more inclined to play something like Forza Horizon than I am to play like Forza Motorsport even, or iRacing or other such. Other such games that I've never heard of. But is it as simple as that? I feel like it's not, because you are very much into sport. So like, why, in a very simple way, like what are you getting out of the arcadey versions of those that's different to the simulation versions? Like the fact that you can enjoy both as somebody that has a big knowledge of, sports in general.
Yeah. So I think on the arcadey side, I only really play them in multiplayer, really. So it's they allow me to play with other people without limiting who I can play with by limiting, me playing sports games only with other people that really love sports. I can play the arcadey sports games with a wider range of people because, there's more people I know that, you're not segmenting the audience by asking them, you have to like sports in order to play with me. Well, no, I can play everybody's golf or whatever it is with whoever. That's where I tend to play those games. Apart from racing games, like arcadey racing games, I still play, Wipeout and Forza Horizon and the Dirt series and whatever, or even Mario Kart if we're including that as in this. But I think racing games are slightly different because even when they are arcadey and it's, you don't have to worry about the traction on your car so much and you're not gear shifting and whatever, they're kind of just like in your face, aren't they? They're visceral. They're just really fast and like action packed, and like you don't have to like racing at all to like those games, because I suppose the feedback system is just giving you everything that you need to have fun. Like, it's like a shooter. You don't have to like shooting guns in order to like Call of Duty, because the feedback system is so one-to-one. You shoot the gun, does it hit target, yes or no? You got that immediate feedback, and that then triggers you to either be successful and you've shot the guy, so that feels good, so you want to shoot more, or you miss and it's frustrating, but like you only miss by a little bit, so you want to improve.
So you're achieving the thing that you're setting out to do, irrespective of what that thing is, and that's what you're getting feedback on, the thing that you're setting out to try, not the actual end.
And I think arcade racing games are similar to that in that they provide a very visceral, direct feedback loop in, have I got that line right? Am I on the power? enough to go around that corner, like just sort of super nailing that corner at maximum speed. And then of course you add in like Wipeout and Mario and stuff, you add in shooting as well. So it's got that on top of it. On the other games though, I think sometimes there's this feeling that if you really like sports and then you play sports games, you're playing them only to try to live a dream of like what it would be like to score the winning goal in a World Cup final or throw the winning touchdown in Super Bowl or whatever. But I don't know if that's wholly true because of what I said before. Like when I play FIFA, I don't feel like Ronaldo. When I play Madden, I don't feel like Tom Brady or whoever. It is one level removed from that. You're engaging on it. For me, you're engaging on it from like the things that I really like about American football and soccer is that I like the tactical side. I like the different, and I like the fact that there's generally thousands, if not millions, of ways of winning a game, and it's not like everyone's found all the ways of winning yet. There's more ways of winning come up every year, every season, as people evolve their tactical approach and players try different things and whatever. So I like those parts of the games because it allows me to kind of experiment and see those things in action in a different way. But it also means that I tend to get bored of them quite quickly. So with FIFA, for example, I get bored of it. I still play it whenever it comes out, but I get bored of it faster each year because that tactical diversity isn't there really. Like whereas in real football, when you watch it, if you could watch any one of thousands of different teams around the world, or like hundreds of good teams across Europe and South America and wherever, and you can see in those games many ways of winning, and within the game, a single game, a team might have 8 or 9 approaches if it's going badly. But in FIFA, it's a bit frustrating because it's not a true simulation. So when you play people online, or you yourself fall into just one of 5 or 6 ways of approaching a game, because those are, with how the game's been programmed, those are just the best ways to win. So the game feels limiting quite quickly.
Yeah, and that's not something, to my knowledge anyway, that FIFA has ever really tried to recreate. Like, I don't recall many years where the back of the box features have been that they have implemented a new, a refined way to issue tactical changes. Like a lot of the headline stuff in FIFA is I don't know, like it's this particular like passing system, or it's hair physics, or it's something. I'm being a bit disparaging there, but yeah, it's not focused on the tactical side as much as some, like in the same way that if you play Football Manager, I presume that's far more tactically nuanced. Yeah,
to give FIFA credit, like in recent seasons, it well, pretty much every season for like the last 6 or 7 years, it has spent more effort increasing the tactical variety and how you can issue commands to different players, and you can issue them without going into the pause menu and stuff. Like there are more and more things that you can do. But yeah, compared to something like Football Manager is way more diverse in tactical approaches specifically, like way more. But then it doesn't have to worry about like the physics of the players so much. Yes, you can watch the games in Football Manager, but the physics systems and stuff are nowhere near as evolved and sophisticated as they are in FIFA. But with Football Manager, you're taking it one level more abstracted by actually kind of removing the act of playing the game, and putting it down to button presses and stuff. And then it's kind of like okay, I've loaded up the team now of all these instructions, and let's just see how they do. And of course, you can pause the game whenever you want and change it, and the simulation is super sophisticated. But it's interesting in Football Manager where the sophistication comes from removing yourself that one layer more and removing the act of playing the game and simulating primarily the act of issuing instructions to individual pieces of AI and
that side of something like Madden is the thing that I've always enjoyed about it. That's what drew me to it in the first place, way back in like 1991. It was that it is that feedback loop. It's that mini like read the situation, issue instructions, make that play, did it succeed? Yes, no. And then that then feeds into the next set of strategic decisions. And it is about those decisions rather than the actual act of like the in the moment gameplay. That's the stuff. And like that, and I started playing Madden without really having any interest in NFL. It was more the other way around. I started playing Madden just because a friend had it and we played loads of it. And that got me more into NFL. Still not to any real extent. You know, I might watch the Super Bowl every year and follow along broadly with what's happening during the season, but it's not something I go out of my way to watch or engage with. But nonetheless, any interest I have in NFL came from Madden, and any understanding of the rules and the strategies of NFL came from playing Madden. But I wonder. So, me and a friend have played Madden historically. The bit of Madden that we've always struggled with, or struggled the most with, is the defensive strategies.
Could have guessed that.
And so how does that work? Because I like thinking about something like snooker. I've seen players complain about somebody, like a player like Ronnie O'Sullivan, who may decide on a whim, such is his want, that if somebody snookers him, he's just going to hammer the ball around the table and see what happens. And I've seen players complaining about that because that isn't, and it's a bit like underarm serves in tennis. There's this notion of although that's within the rules, it's not the spirit of the game, or it's not that's not how this dynamic is set up.
Yeah,
the dynamic is set up that I do this thing and I expect you to do that thing and etc. And then we go back and forth on those rules.
Yeah, well, I would suggest that the reason the other players are annoyed at that is because it reduces the skill level to a point where anyone could do it. So you're removing this game of skill you're pushing it to a game of luck. And at that point, what's the point of playing it? Because you get the same thing in poker tournaments. Professional poker players won't play against non-professional players because they can't be sure that the amateurs are getting the information properly that they're putting on the table in order for them to fold or whatever. So then the amateur will just do this completely random thing, even though every mathematical reasoning, every piece of psychological reasoning says they shouldn't do it. And then the pro's just like, well, what's the point of me playing? Like, I'm giving all this information and they're not picking up. So my game can't act here.
I find that interesting, but I find there's a bit of me that reacts to that in like a kind of like a, well, boo-hoo kind of thing. Like your goal as the more skilled player, and I'm thinking of this on the fly, so your goal as the more skilled player is to impose your game on the situation, not to, if somebody's playing like this, it would also explain why when I've been in casinos in the past and I'd sit down to play something like blackjack, people get annoyed because I'm not doing it the right way. People that follow me or precede me in the turn order don't get to act in the way that they want to because I've done something random, like, you know, hit on a 15 or whatever. But it's like there's like Nick Kyrgios in tennis says, well, it's in the rules of the game. What's the problem? You need to react to it. You need to just get used to the idea that this might happen. You've always known that this might happen. It's just that people haven't done it, and now people are doing it. It becomes part of the tactics and the gameplay. But I wonder, so just to loop this back to the original thing about Madden, what would happen? So if you and I sat down to play Madden and you with a much greater understanding of the defensive side of it, and I'm probably not choosing the offensive plays that I should be in any given situation. And so then how do you set up a defense, a particular defensive formation, because what you're acting on presumably is what I should be doing in that situation. It's 3rd and 20 and I should be doing X, but I'm doing something else. So you set your formation. You literally have to choose your formation ahead of time. You like set that up, and then I'm doing something that's but so how, like, is that one of those situations where it's like the person who doesn't have the knowledge is setting themselves up?
Yeah, it could be. And
like the other person feels that's unfair or not necessarily unfair, but just doesn't enjoy it, or is like, it's just not fun to play against.
Yeah, and it could be that like this isn't enjoyable because the other person clearly has no idea what they're doing. And the annoying thing is that the person that has no idea what they're doing is probably still going to lose most of the time, but it becomes annoying when they're not losing all the time because they should be losing all the time because they've made the wrong thing. They've made the wrong decision, and I think this is.
But doesn't it make it the right thing? If
no, then but it doesn't.
What I mean? Like, if it works, then isn't that then the right thing?
Yeah, but it doesn't if the good players decide not to play against anyone other than the good players. Because this is what happens in poker. It's not about accepting that the fact that there's this randomness from the guy who doesn't know what's going on. It's like, well, I'm just not going to play them. So I'm not even going to allow that form of play to impact me. Because it's not a high skill level. Like, yes, anyone with a low skill level can beat now and again on any single random game a person with a high skill level.
Sure.
But they won't. And this is why American sports like NBA and NHL have best of 7 series, so that the sort of fluky win through sheer silly luck can never win the whole thing.
Yeah, but in the context of football, isn't that what like the magic of the FA Cup is all about?
Well, exactly.
Like,
the magic of the FA Cup is increased variance because there's only one game. That's what the magic of the FA Cup is.
But that seems to be framed as a positive thing. Certainly for spectators, it seems to be framed as a very exciting thing. That's like, oh wow, this low division team could beat Man City or Liverpool.
This is a cultural thing, I think, because that's very in England and in Europe we like that sense of anything can happen, that the big dog will be taken down by anyone. It's like, you're not as good as you think you are. Stop getting too big for your boots. In American sports, it's very different. The person who's the best should win because they deserve it. Like, they should be rewarded. It's like sports right. isn't about allowing any old person to have success. It's about celebrating the best. So it's a different approach to, I'm not saying one is better than the other, but it is a different approach. One of them prioritizes excitement of surprise. The other one prioritizes, no, let's just celebrate the greatest achievement that we can here. But
so does that translate into video games? So trying to tie this into how I enjoy. So some of the games that you've already mentioned are historically games that I've chosen to play, whether or not I've got a particular knowledge of or enjoyment of the real world sport. And they are things like the arcadey things like NBA Jam back in the day, and over NBA 2K and that sort. Like, I'm more interested in that, and I don't know, like some sort of arcadey football variant, but it would be something like
Mario Strikers.
Something like that, over Mario Golf, like everybody's golf over a.
Well, I'm wondering why then, if you're looking for these abstracted versions of the sports that remove a lot of the sophistication and the detail and like the tactics especially, and like Mario Strikers, you don't have to know anything about football, do you? Like it's just it's basically like a beat 'em up is how it works. You have like special moves and stuff. I'm wondering why you would choose to play those games if you're looking for the more gamey elements over just a straight up video game that wasn't potentially encumbered by having to abstract the core rule set from football. Because in Mario Strikers, still you adhere to the rules of whoever puts the ball in the net the most amount of times is the winner. In Mario Kart, it's still who can get over the line quicker than the other team. And everybody's golf, it's who can do the fewest shots to get the ball in the hole. But why? I'm wondering why if you want all the detail and the stuff, why would the sports game be something that you pick at all? Because there's plenty of other even in multiplayer, there's plenty of other games to pick.
Yeah, there's an immediacy to some of it. The feedback loop that it's based upon, I guess it's a bit like FPSs, because again, that's not a genre that I'm particularly, well, narrative FPSs, yes, but like certainly like Twitch FPSs, or we talked about Apex Legends in the past, and that's something that you had first-hand experience of enjoying me. So
you're not playing Valorant at a competitive level?
Not quite. No. So there's a feedback loop element of it, but I think again, to go back to like why I play these games, often it's for social reasons, and they accompany other things. So it's more like when I'm playing Everybody's Golf, we're not really talking about the golf. We'll comment on a shot, or it's a bit like back in the day. I used to play a little bit of real golf, and that wasn't really to go and play golf so much as it was to go and spend 4 hours walking and talking with friends, and every now and then we would hit a golf ball. So it's a similar sort of thing. Like that's, I suppose, some of it is built into it's what they facilitate. It's that they facilitate being able to sit down and chat with friends and then play a game that I've been playing for probably a couple of decades by now. The PS1 version of Everybody's Golf was the first one that I played, and so there's a familiarity in that. And if they brought out another NBA Jam game, I would be more interested in that than like NBA 2K. And it's I suppose for similar reasons. It's the social side. Like it's familiar enough that I don't need to go and learn a whole new thing. It's like I understand that it's putting that in there more than the other person. But then there's also just the emotional, like adrenaline style feedback of playing NHL, and it's just fun. Like that feedback of scoring.
I think you just answered it in the familiarity and I think the simplicity of the rules as well, because there's a reason why people that don't play sports games will still gravitate towards games based on sports rather than multiplayer games that are not based on sports. There's plenty of games we can play to relax with friends that are multiplayer, that are not sports, MMOs or whatever, pick a multiplayer game, Overcooked or whatever. They're not sports, but I think we pick sports games. I'm just trying to think about why the reason is, and it could be the familiarity of the core familiarity. There's the learning process is much reduced because we understand the basic rules of tennis, the basic rules of golf. Even if you never played them, you still vaguely understand what they're about. And also, I wonder if, these sports have had many, many, many more decades, sometimes over 100 years, to work out their rule systems and work out what it is that makes them fun, and refine that and refine that and refine that over the time. Like, in football, yes, the core rules stay the same, but the details of the rules change every season. Same with American football, the details of the rules change every single season, like what's legal and what's illegal changes all the time.
And that's not just for the good of the game, right? Like that's not just for the specific act of making the game more fun or more enjoyable or more fair to play. That's also incorporating the experience of the spectator in some of those rule changes.
Well,
right?
yeah, this is a philosophical question about what it means for the sport to be more fun, because in real terms, I would argue that it only matters what the audience thinks is more fun, because at the end of the day, if they don't like it, then it's not going to. The sport's going to die.
It's not going to make any money.
So,
it's not. Yeah.
So I think it is an intrinsic part of the question of what makes a sport better is actually just what makes it better to watch is the answer. Yeah. It's not really about the players. They're kind of subservient to the fans, because if there's no fans, they're not a player. So I think that's another key thing as well, is that because things like FIFA and Madden and whatever and Everybody's Golf, whatever the thing that they're copying is the act of watching the sport, and the sports have been designed over time and refined to make it better to watch than they do make natural video games as well, because of that you're still a spectator. You're viewing the sports in a game from a spectator angle first, rather than a player level first, apart from things like iRacing and Gran Turismo and whatever. But predominantly, you play FIFA and Madden from TV camera angles. You don't play them from the viewpoint of the quarterback.
So how does that apply to your approach and your enjoyment of those games, where you are very interested and enjoy the real world equivalents, and not even necessarily just from a spectacle standpoint? You enjoy engaging with the tactical and I guess philosophical approach of various football players and managers. So how does that translate into when you play a football game? Like, are you able to even engage in video game football games in the same way that you can real world football? Is there an equivalent, and is even that what you're looking for?
Not really, no. Apart from some, they're not the same. I mean, even in Football Manager, I'm indulging in that, like, but I could do it better kind of thing. Well, not even better. It's just like, okay, what, the experience. Well, sometimes I could do it better. Yeah, sometimes it's a what if. Sometimes it's just like, okay, how it's another way of engaging in a sport that I love, I suppose, from a completely different angle, and it allows me to enjoy different things about it. And like Football Manager especially allows you to understand more about it from a different perspective on those sorts of things.
In the same way that I will watch Hades runs, not necessarily to pick up tactics. I mean, sometimes, but not really. It's just that it's a thing that I love, and it's another way for me to engage with that thing and enjoy that thing, even if it's not representative of either how I play the game or it's not informing how I play the game. Perhaps it's just, it's the seeking out of another way to interact with something that you already enjoy.
And it could be so that you're interacting with something that is nostalgic, I suppose, as well. Like, so I still play like Tony Hawk's Pro Skater now, and I used to skateboard when I was younger, but I don't now. But I still like that kind of world, and I still watch like the X Games and stuff now. So I still like I still appreciate the skill level and stuff. And Tony Hawk's obviously not very realistic.
SSX tricky. That would be my go-to for that.
Yeah, and I used to snowboard as well, and I haven't for a long time. But I still like playing SSX and those things. So yeah, I suppose at a core, like all of these games are about. Well, for me, I don't know. I suppose the conclusion here is the beauty of sports games is that they can be so many things to so many people. Whether it's indulging in a new way of a sport that you love, if it's trying to replicate the sport in a one-to-one version of the sport in iRacing or whatever, if it's being able to play a tried and tested rule set with friends in Everybody's Golf, if it's having a larger than life version of a rule set in Mario Strikers, like whatever, there's all of these just pure competition elements that work in sports games for all these different reasons, for all these different people. I suppose then, is it even a genre? Like, is it even like, is it so diverse in its offering to all these different people that we actually need to categorize them a bit more precisely in order to make meaningful links between them?
Well, very possibly, yeah. Because what I think of and what it means to me, what a sports game might mean to me, like when we talk about sports games, that I have a very different even interpretation of what that is, or a very different, not interpretation necessarily, but it means a different thing for me. And that also is determined by the person to whom I'm talking about it. So if I'm talking to you about sports games, if you were to say on that very basic linguistic level, let's play a sports game, I would take that to potentially mean something different than if somebody else said, let's play a sports game. Except, of course, I mean, there may also be, you may have also factored that in, and in saying to me, let's play a sports game, so it's a very subjective thing. And if you, I suppose the better you know somebody, the more you tailor what you mean by, just in the same way as you do when you talk to them about anything, you tailor what you say, what you mean by what you know of them already. So
that would be funny though, if like someone came around, if someone was visiting you or whatever, and you were like, oh yeah, I'm going to set up a sports game for us to play, and the only game they ever play is iRacing, and I'm like, okay, great, yeah, well, amazing. And they go around and it's like, here's the Wiimote, I'm going to play like some Wii Sports. It's like, what? No,
Wii bowling is entirely awesome. That's absolutely amazing. Yeah. Well, so yes, it is a very flexible genre. It is and it can give us different things. I mean, yeah, maybe more so than a lot of other genres. Like, yeah,
I think that's the thing. That's why I'm struggling to see if it is a genre or not, because because all of these games combined into a single thing. Like, I mean, at the most basic level, you can say that arcade sports game versus simulation, but I don't know if that's a useful definition even, because like, is FIFA a simulation like we were speaking about before? So, yeah, I don't know. It could be that I don't know. The diversity of them is the most interesting thing, but then I suppose the diversity of them can also lead to problems in communicating what they are, because they are so many different things to different people. It's not like MOBA, like that's very defined. Like you say, you want I'm going to play a MOBA, then it's okay, I know exactly what I'm getting. You say sports game, it could be one of 20 different variations of a game that bear very little resemblance to each other whatsoever. So, is sports game even a meaningful genre? Let us know what you think via our Twitter and our other social media platforms. We are at Indie by Design on everything. While you're there on our Twitter, you'll also find a link to our Discord, which we've just started, so head over there for more chat and stay up to date with everything that we're doing. Also, if you enjoy Gaming the Podcast, then it would be fantastic if you are able to leave us a 5-star review on iTunes, as it really does help us massively when it comes to finding new listeners and building our audience. Otherwise, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you again next week. Cheers.